So this deal with RedBird that gives every Big 12 school $30 million in capital equity, you could opt in. You could just take the $30 million. BYU and Houston said no. We don't even want that money. Why? This is the Locked On Dos Grande Squad.
You're talking ball with the Big 12 squad. From Oklahoma State to Utah, from Kansas State to BYU, from Houston to Texas Tech, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming Big 12 weekend. Buckle up. It's the Big 12 squad, and we have a seat for you. No hurt feelings and thin skin allowed. Squad up. You're part of the Big 12 squad.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to the Dos Grande Squad. Drake Tolwith from Locked On Big 12. That's Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Cougs, talking all things Houston. Cody Stovall, Locked On Oklahoma State. Jake Hatch, Locked On Cougars, BYU. Hey, by the way, if you love our shows and you want ad-free Locked On Big 12, go to lockedoncougars.supercast.com or lockedonbig12.supercast. You get the gist, and you can be an everydayer who has ad-free Locked On Big 12. Let's start by saying thank you for making our shows your first listen every single day and going into private equity, capital equity. What is this whole RedBird deal? And why are schools saying no to it when Brett Yormark has forged this new path for the Big 12 Conference? Then we can certainly talk baseball, softball, Brendan Sorsby, whatever you want to, but that's where we have to start. If you hit subscribe, we all get to keep our jobs. The first one, the most recent, is Houston to opt out of this deal. The first one to opt out, the BYU Cougars were pretty vocal before it was even signed. Hey, if this goes through, we're probably not in. Jake Hatch, $30 million, and the Cougs just said no. Why?
BYU does not take on debt unnecessarily. And that's what this has as a return rate of under 10%. But it is a loan. It's $30 million that you be paid up over a significant period of time, obviously, because $30 million is not insurmountable. Let's be very clear. It's not putting yourself in massive debt. But BYU's whole philosophy, and it just goes back to being the flagship school of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is they don't take on unnecessary debt. All their buildings on campus are paid for before their ground is even broken on them. That's just the way that BYU operates. So that this, I get why it's attractive, because obviously, hey, $30 million, that's awesome, but it's just not in BYU's MO.
Okay, well, let's, by the way, not breaking ground for a building until it's paid for is crazy. I'm not sure if anybody else in the Big 12 is doing that or has ever done that. So I'd now flip it to Parker Ainsworth, because in the words of your head basketball coach, you're poor. yeah, right. Houston is poor. Why would Houston opt out? They just opted out.
So Nunez talked about that, and frankly, when the deal was struck by Yormark last week, I spoke about I thought it'd be a great deal for Houston. I thought the 10% paid back and the interest rate or whatever was actually pretty understandable and not that bad for the schools. It's not a true equity deal, and they wouldn't own the school's athletic department or anything like that either. I thought it was a pretty solid deal. I think what Nunez said that struck me was, in looking at a long-term picture, July 1st will be the first time Houston's a full revenue share school in the Big 12, right? And he was thinking, in the big picture of this thing of being a Power 4 school, Houston has been to a Final Four and been a 10-win football team with relatively low investment. They're about to get a whole bunch of more money the old-fashioned way, so to speak, right? Why not play that out a little bit and see how that goes before you start taking on more debt, as Jake Hatch just pointed out. And frankly, unlike Jake and the BYU Cougars, we have built buildings without having them fully paid off. And I think there's also some aspect there's already some debt on campus to be paid off. Why add more when you haven't seen what those checks look like after the big investment in July?
Cody Stovall, numbers time.
Dude, I think this is primarily predicated upon your trajectory, right? So if Oklahoma State were to have this presented last year, there's no chance we make it, because there's no chance that our team's going to be marketable and profitable enough over the next few years to pay it back. But if you're in a situation where you think your trajectory is going the right way, I think this does make sense, right? It's a gamble. It's a little bit of a risk. But say you're in Oklahoma State and you've got the Messmakers and the Hawkins and you got Eric Morris, you got the new sexy fun hires. If it takes off, if Oklahoma State plays for a Big 12 title game or something crazy to that effect, then I do think that you have now marketed the university to a level where it makes sense. It's worth the risk to take the $30 million, because your brand's going to be bigger and you're going to be able to pay it off faster. But if your trajectory is terrible, then you're just adding debt for no reason.
Well, and to your point, Cody, and I'll back up something that Parker talked about. Nunez may be thinking, because you point out, Parker, that for the first time, July 1, so BYU will be the same case where they're going to full share revenue in terms of being members of the Big 12 Conference. This has got a full year term on it in terms of being able to accept it. So to your point, Parker, they may be saying, okay, let's see what the money looks like when we get this full revenue share. And then we got a whole year to decide if we need to add that later on the back end. It's not like you have to decide right now for that. So I guess to your point, Cody, trajectory could go up and then you decide you want to either move on from it or take it. And to Parker's point, they can look at kind of the numbers, get a full year's look at what things look like in the real world, as it were, and then make that decision.
Part of that,
Iowa State better take it. I think we can all agree with that one.
Yes.
Well, the more that opt out, it is $500 million. The more that opt out, the more opportunity you have. Like, all right, BYU, you're divvying out your share to others. Surely that number doesn't go down with the contract, but the number and the way you divvy it will change. Reported this week, Heartland College Sports, Matthew Postins did a really good article on this. The Big Ten generated $1.47 billion in revenue. The SEC, $1.03 billion. That's almost a $500 million gap between the Big Ten and the SEC in revenue. Now, there are more teams, the Big Ten, and a lot of other factors. National championship doesn't hurt. The Big 12, their revenue number, $460 million in comparison to $1 billion plus with the other two leagues. That's bad, but $500 million in your pocket today helps. That closes the gap more than the ACC has been able to. And what I like about this, the more that I read about it, it's a zero equity surrender. So RedBird doesn't have 15% control of the conference, 10% control. It's an immediate innovation capital. And look, if you're Iowa State and you want to use it to bolster your NIL, your money, dog. If you're Oklahoma State, you want to build a brand new big-ass basketball arena, your money, boss, go do it. That autonomy is something that is different than other deals. Like the Utah deal. Remember when they were going to be stupid rich? And then now, 4 months later, like, oh, why aren't they stupid rich? Because there was more fine print.
I'll add on to that, Drake. That deal with Otro Capital Partners for Utah was supposed to be finalized first quarter of 2026, and we're now firmly in the second quarter, and it's still not done. There are major question marks about what the viability of that deal is. And I know that I mentioned the fact that BYU, just the way that BYU operates, everything they make sure that they have endowments in place and everything when it comes to building buildings and everything they do on campus. It's just the way that BYU operates. Utah, on the other hand, when they were in the Pac-12, they went on a building spree, and they have got major amounts of money that are going to come due in relatively short order. There's question marks, at least from my vantage point, as to why this deal is not finalized for them, because they're talking about having $500 million in the bank, and it seems like they're no closer to having that deal finalized than when they announced it all those months ago.
What's the downside? We'll keep it on that, but we'll jump into segment 2 with downsides of the schools that do opt into this. We can continue even what Utah did in their private equity kick. This is the Locked On Dose Grande Squad. Are you ready? Today's show is brought to you by Rugiet Ready. I am so glad they're back, man. I mean, remember, this is the same Rugiet that said effects can last up to 36 hours. And we had a good old discussion about it, like hour 33. Like, oh, more. The NHL playoffs are here. Where am I going with this? Every shift matters. Every moment's intense. The pressure at its highest. I'm a big Dallas Stars fan, so it used to be. It just like performance matters on the ice, it matters off the ice, where Rugiet comes in, offering treatments designed to help you get ready and stay ready when it matters. It works fast in about 15 minutes, can last up to 36 hours. All about confidence, feeling like yourself again. Rugiet.com/LockedOnNHL to get 15% off your ED treatment. RUGIET.com/LockedOnNHL for 15% off. Rugiet, performance medicine for men with Rugiet. We are all Rugiet ready today on Locked On Big 12 on the Dose Grande Squad. It's Parker. It's Parker.
What a logo.
What a logo. It's just an R with an arrow pointed high in the sky.
If there were any questions as to what Rugiet did, I mean, clear marketing right there.
Yeah, that's unreal. Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Cougs. Cody Stovall, Locked On Oklahoma State. Jake Hatch of Locked On Cougars, talking BYU. Mountaineer Paul of Locked On West Virginia, jumping in.
Hey, I have a quick question, Drake. Now, I don't know if there's a massive differentiation between the Utah deal and this private equity deal for the Big 12, but the biggest thing I think even Parker mentioned was that you don't lose ownership percentage of your university, and that's what
Yeah.
most of these deals were orchestrated around. Is that the same thing for Utah? Is there any proprietary ownership of Utah?
So Utah's spinning off a portion of their athletic department to create a whole thing called Utah Brand Initiatives, which is a partnership between this Ocho Capital and the University of Utah. So, Cody, they're essentially creating a whole new entity that has parts of the athletic department, along with having Ocho Capital partner with some of their people working together to maximize profitability for Utah athletics. And there is a stake that Ocho Capital will be in terms of being able to pull money out of that deal over time. I don't think it has necessarily an ownership stake in Utah athletics, but it creates a whole new, essentially a pseudo athletic department for the Utes.
Yeah. So in essence, right,
Drake, is this a year-to-year thing? So like if you were BYU and Houston opted out this year, could they opt in next season? Is that verbiage kind of spelled out?
Well, we're on effectively a trial run here.
Okay.
There is that year gap is kind of an opt in, opt out. Let's see how we don't. So where Hatch said, hey, there's kind of a hard line for Utah to figure it out in quarter 1. They didn't do that. We don't have as hard of a line to make this whole thing go today. To answer your question too, add a bit. The Utah Brands Entertainment LLC is a for-profit company that Utah started. Ocho Capital is still a minority owner while the university is a majority, and RedBird doesn't own a piece of the Big 12. And look, the deal for Utah would be a much larger capital deal. The Big 12 taking $500 million and divvying it among 16 teams. Utah signed a $500 million deal for themselves alone.
So,
Problem is, nobody really knows where that money is right now.
I have a bigger question on the RedBird thing, though, and this may launch us to a different avenue completely.
That's fine, yeah.
When you look at what RedBird has taken ownership of, right? Because you mentioned private equity firms take some portion of whatever.
Sure.
They own a notable stake in Paramount CBS.
There he goes. He's hitting it.
This feels like it's honestly a precursor relation. Hey, let's go on a first date. Hey, let's just go get coffee, right? Let's see what things are like before you go to the big ballroom or whatever, right? I think that this feels more like the Big 12 is doing this thing to kind of shake hands and see, hey, look, we can get along, right? Before ultimately a Paramount CBS deal happens. And at this point, with just a couple of years.
Baby Parker. That was a full screen moment, baby.
He did it.
And Parker, to your point, they own the CBS, they own Paramount, so they own CBS. They're supposed to be adding TNT soon. Those are the two kind of growing entities in the sports media space right now. They want to add a bunch of sports properties. We're seeing TNT, since they lost the NBA, they're investing across the board in terms of adding sports properties. So I think you've nailed it, Parker. This could be kind of the first date, as it were, as this dance between these two entities goes along.
Amazon with Duke as well.
Yeah. I mean, the way that we're getting creative in TV deals is further exacerbated by stuff like this and Duke and with a move like this. Somebody asked me why RedBird. Why would RedBird do this? Well, they're in a spot now where they can take. I mean, who doesn't want control of college athletics right now? The name recognition they're going to get out of this is going to be substantial, and tying themselves with possibly and this is why I think it goes a lot deeper for RedBird and the Big 12, tying themselves with a direct media partner to TNT and CBS in 2031. That's where it looks like this is all pointed, is that in 2031, where CBS needs a new big football brand and TNT wants a big football brand, the Big 12 with the right offer could say, hey, ESPN, we're good. We're going to buy into CBS, TNT, and that's our media rights deal. And then you're saying, well, no, ESPN's the worldwide leader in sports. Why would you ever leave ESPN? The MLB's done it. The NHL has been, I would say the NHL to the NBA, some products feel like they've been almost ruined by this. And so they've gotten to Prime and they're hanging out with Amazon. They want to go do these. Like the Big 12's not in a terrible spot by saying, you know what, ESPN, we're okay not having you at the forefront of our athletics.
And Drake, I'll add to this, it gives you leverage against ESPN too, because ESPN obviously is in bed with the SEC. We all know this. Fox is in bed with the 10. This gives you that leverage when it comes to negotiations with ESPN to be like, hey, you want to lowball us? We'll jump over here. And that causes the competition to where you can leverage more money out of all these entities altogether.
Now, guys, does this put us any closer to the ACC falling apart?
I answered that question too this week, actually. College football addiction, TJ Pittenger. And what I said is, I think what the Big 12 is doing with something like this is separating themselves from the ACC, in that it's always the Judd Apatow buddy cop movie where there are two nerds. One nerd wants to be cool. The one nerd gets invited into the cool club. The other nerd gets forgotten, and they make up at the end, become friends again. We don't want to make up at the end and become friends again. We of the two nerds want the invite to be in the cool club. We ditch those guys, and now if the Big 12 can separate itself into a Power 3, because high school recruits or transfers love to use this verbiage. I've talked to a few recruits who say Power 4. I'm going to play in the Power 4. There's Division 1. I'm a Division 1 athlete. I'm a Power 4 athlete. It means two different things. If they can get into the Power 3, if that's what this is trending toward, and the ACC loses Florida State and Clemson, the Big 12 is alive as a conference as opposed to what the Pac-12 is going through.
Florida State, Clemson, and Miami, which may have a Yormark by the time this drops. Like who knows how all that goes. Do you think, though, and I was going to come back around for if this is all about having a good first date with CBS, do you need schools to sign on to the $30 million in a way that Houston are we having a bad coffee date if schools don't sign on? Because Houston, like I said, on Monday, Houston said they're not, and BYU said they're not. And
if it's only a few teams, I don't think it's a big deal. But if it starts to grow legs and a bunch of teams, then I think it's a terrible.
Well, and the initial reporting on this was that they thought that for you as two and maybe as many as half dozen total in the Big 12 were going to take on this deal. So
they wouldn't have put this together if they thought a lot of people were going to opt out. I wouldn't imagine.
Yeah, I think they had an idea of how many schools were actually interested in doing it when they put it together.
Yeah. Paul, do you have any idea where West Virginia sits with this equity deal with RedBird?
It's interesting. I actually did a show on this the other day, and I'll just say it like this. West Virginia basketball was able to, really spend money this offseason. I feel like we were able to do that without any help from any kind of private equity or any kind of loan or anything like that. And if you can continue to do that, I don't know why you would want to borrow against anything and have to pay it back later. I get it. It's a good deal and everything, but I don't know. I haven't spoken to anybody at the university really about it. I think that it's something that it's nice to have, but I don't know that necessarily it's something that we have to do right now. We feel like we're in a pretty good place. I do like a lot of things about it. It avoids nonprofit legal issues. There's, equity. There's the equity ownership conflicts that you'd avoid that, like the NCAA governance problems you avoid. You keep conference control intact with it. You get an advisor in RedBird. So there's a lot with it that I do like. But there is a little bit of a conflict of interest, right? Because you've got RedBird that's going to be advising the conference. It's going to lend money to the schools, has ties to the CBS and TNT, like you said. But the schools that borrow the money may feel pressure to kind of take the highest paying TV deal, which may not necessarily be the best long-term deal. And so it could push the Big 12 towards the biggest check, not the smartest move. Does that make sense?
Good.
I got a second question then. I teach history, not math. Why wouldn't the biggest check be the smartest check?
Let's go there next. Let's go there next on the Dose Grande. Let's get on the Dose Grande squad. So Parker, you just hit biggest check, smartest check. Expound on that.
To be too simple or what? I just mean if a check is about money, I want the most zeros on mine. You can take how many zeros you want. I want more zeros than the next guy, right? That's the goal, I thought.
Well, I get that. 10% interest is kind of high though, because you're paying back future TV money, which means you're going to mortgage your future in some ways. Which, if revenue doesn't grow enough, you're going to get into a financial squeeze type situation. So basically, you're going to be borrowing against money that you don't have yet. That's kind of the conflict, in my opinion.
That's why I go back to the trajectory thing. There's some teams in the Big 12 where I think this doesn't make sense. If you can see yourself in debt over the next 3 to 4 or 5 years, maybe it's not the best move. But at the same point in time, some of the teams like in Iowa State, it's probably worth the debt, right? They probably need to roll that dice and make that gamble.
Most college programs operate in some level of debt. I mean, there's only less than 2 dozen operate in the green on a year-to-year basis.
BYU.
And that's by mandate for BYU. I'll be very blunt. The university's told them that
crazy, man.
The athletic department, the only way the athletic department exists at BYU is if they can kill what they eat, essentially, eat what they kill.
Well, and they operate independently for a long time, right? And I think that interesting thing about it, though, is that like in the grand scheme of college athletics, Power 4, Power 3 athletics, $3 million of debt isn't all that much debt when you look around the room, right? Like, and if it's 10% of the 30, I teach history and not math, but that doesn't seem like it just feels like a fairly, if you can turn that 30 into something worth more than 33 million, you're making money on it, frankly.
Well, I mean, what about this angle then? Could it create a little bit of a competitive imbalance? Some teams take the 30, others don't. So the rich within the conference get richer. They don't have to worry about that financial squeeze question that Cody brought up. Inside the same conference, the NIL facilities, maybe that gap widens a little bit. Could it create tiers inside the Big 12? Is that a possibility?
Well, don't we already have tiers kind of existing as it is? Because you look.
Well, we're told all the time.
That's right, guys. EA Sports said Oklahoma State is tier 1. Thank you for that.
I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm not saying this is necessarily how it feels.
MP, to your point, I think it's well taken. But here's the thing: couldn't Cody Campbell cut a $30 million check to Texas Tech anytime he wanted?
Yes.
I'm very confident that BYU has a handful of boosters that if push came to shove, they could call them up and say, hey, we need $30 million. And those boosters would come up with it.
And one of them is Jake Hatch because he has so many subs.
Right.
So many subs.
That's why I'm on this podcast, boys. No, but the point is, to your point, MP, I think we already have divisions and tiers in this conference as is. To Cody's point, Iowa State, based on how everything's operating in Ames, they seem to be dragging bottom barrel right now in terms of trying to generate revenue. So they probably need that $30 million, whereas a BYU, like they could probably call their boosters and come up with that money if need be, and it wouldn't be where it had a 10% return on it.
My last little thing on this is if people spend the money poorly,
sure,
that's going to lead to issues as well. But it's not going to be. It's going to be like in each university individual necessarily. Like it's if you spend it and like let's give an example. Rim Baker obviously hired Ross Hodge, and now we've had to really invest in him to get him a good team on the floor. If that happened to be the 30 million that we use, and it goes wrong, what happens to Rim Baker from there? That kind of thing. These are things I thought of, like trying to think of what could be bad about a loan that's you're not giving any ownership away.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of on the surface, it looks really good about it.
I think you, Paul, actually bring up a really good point that I didn't think of. I would imagine most of us didn't. This is going to come down to how good your administration is.
Yes.
Like this is going to come down to your GMs and the people behind the scenes that push the numbers and make the things happen. So I think every school in the conference, you just mentioned, is there going to create tiers? Is there going to create an imbalance? We're about to find out. The teams that are better at managing the money, managing the situation, managing this era are probably going to be more successful. And the teams that have, ADs and GMs and things that spend the money wrong are going to end up in a Mike Gundy situation.
And to MP's point, I would not invest this money. If you're going to take it, don't invest it in personnel. And speaking of players and coaches, because guess what? Yep. They leave. And guess what? They leave. There goes your ROI. So
that's a good point.
It needs to be invested in something else other than personnel.
I also think, though, that like to Cody's point that the idea you need better administration, whatever, to make sure you're working it right. That kind of sounds like what at least Houston and it sounds like also BYU are saying is the reason that they're not doing this is like actually given status quo. We have built a 10-win football team last year and a Final Four basketball team the year before that, and we're kind of getting this lump sum and the conference thing at the start of June or July 1st or the next academic year because it's a first year as a full-time conference member. Like actually, we've done pretty well in finding those diamond in the rough transfer portal guys. Like we don't need to take on debt to do exactly that anyway.
Correct.
Parker, are you a little surprised that Houston is going to back out? And turn it down?
To the point that I actually argued last week, this is going to help Houston. I think the biggest thing to me is the Nunez comments about we're doing fine. Why take on extra debt if things are moving in the right direction? And that's when Jake
Calvin Sampson then.
Well, yeah, I will say Kelvin's had a pretty good. It's a lot of mid-major guys. He's had a pretty good transfer portal around. I think the other thing though is like Jake said, like this is a 365-day offer. So if like we're sitting here next April and Kelvin's like, give me some more money, damn it, like then we might sign it, right? Like that's not
going to be good.
Yeah, like that could be a whole different thing. But
yep.
I just thought of Mark Pope for no reason at all specifically.
We need to be careful quoting basketball coach on the show, right? I probably shouldn't have sworn.
Speaking of Press Virginia,
Country Roads.
How about
Country
them Mountaineers?
That's
Joseph
right.
Sannon yesterday.
Go
Miles
Neers.
Sadler. Sorry.
We've got probably 2.5-3 minutes left here. Brendan Sorsby hired Kesley. It says all. Yeah, baseball is good. We don't have enough time to argue and wax poetic.
Really?
Sorsby
did a whole research on baseball.
Oh my gosh! You know what?
My research is who the next coach is.
Paul, the West Virginia Mountaineer baseball team. You have 1 minute and 6 seconds to go.
The West Virginia baseball team swept Kansas State over the weekend. Looked really good. 31-12 now, 16-8 in the league, and top 20. Obviously, after Pitt absolutely embarrassed us in a one game. I've never seen a drubbing like that. What was that final score, Cody? Do you remember?
Nope.
It was like 24-2 or something. It was insane. One of the worst losses we've ever had. But now 16 conference wins obviously puts us right in the title race, which is good. We already have multiple conference series wins. We have 2 sweeps. I think they're playing their best baseball right now, man. I really do, which is a big deal for seeding. And I think, this may not be – they're kind of out of the can they make the regional conversation. And I think it's kind of like how high can they climb? They had 13 runs versus K-State, 3 home runs in 1 inning. That 7 different players recorded an RBI in that game. So, and they've got several guys that are playing well right now with Tyrus Hall, Gavin Kelly, Sean Smith, Matt Enoch, Paul Schoenfield. A lot of guys are really showing up for them right now. And so they're winning, man. With situational baseball, they're getting big innings, pressure style where they force mistakes and turn those into big innings. And they'll beat you with power, or they'll beat your eyes out, Dan, with pressure baseball.
So let me say real quick, Drake, Oklahoma State versus Arizona State. That is going to be the ticket for everybody in the country to watch. It's Colin Ritchie versus Landon Hairston, number 2 in the country in home runs versus number 3 in the country in home runs. They have a top 5 guy in strikeouts. So do we. Oklahoma State, Arizona State, everybody needs to get eyes on this one because we swept Drake's favorite team.
You know what they made me think of? The long ball.
Chicks dig the long ball.
Wow.
Did you actually have control of that, Parker?
I've been popping stuff up there. I'm the one that hits for all the Houston fans upset with Drake. I hit the wear poor button more often than Drake does. On Houston baseball, the name to know is Nolan Cain. Why Nolan Cain? He's an assistant coach at the University of Texas. He could very well be your next head baseball coach at Houston. Once they let things expire with the current winning situation. He coached and played at LSU while Nunez was at LSU. Obviously, he's an LSU guy. The LSU coach is not going anywhere anytime soon. They've won 2 of the last 3 World Series. But I think proving himself as a head coach at a Power 4 school would certainly go a long way to getting closer to that LSU job he probably wants at some point. He's went from coaching at LSU to then coaching A&M with the staff at Texas, and he's obviously very close with them. But that is a name I'd say keep an eye on.
Yeah, Hatch, BYU baseball shot at the tournament.
They're not bad. Not bad.
They're falling flat on their face right now. Like you called it, I think 2 weeks ago, like things were falling apart and they've fallen even further. Like they've gone from being on the bubble of making a regional to being so far off that there's no chance outside of making a miracle run at the Big 12 tournament. My question now is, are we going to see a change at the top for BYU baseball? That's my question.
Oh, wow.
Well, you guys are investing in everything else. It might be a time to do it.
Yeah, dude, your facilities and the atmosphere of that,
such a good atmosphere.
Kind of place. Y'all should be pretty daggone good at baseball.
Yep. So that's kind of what I'm kind of looking at what Parker's talking about. Could they be making the change?
That said, a lot of baseball players I've worked around them my whole life love booze and women. 2 things they don't let you have at BYU. So
unless you're the starting quarterback and then you get kicked out 6 months later.
Hey.
Am I allowed to say that?
Oh no. I went to Tulane, the number 1 party school in America. What a comeback.
I'm going to New Orleans, baby.
Did he really lose that situation? Yeah.
That's crazy. We've had 2
and he went to the playoff. He's the only one that got the playoff.
Yeah.
And we had one that went to New Orleans and the one that went to Vegas.
Life is
Yeah.
good. Life is good for the Jake.
Oh, it's great. Cody
Matt
Stovall,
Jake.
locked on Oklahoma State Mountaineer. Paul, locked on West Virginia. Parker Ainsworth, all things Cougars, locked on Cougs. Jake Hatch, all things BYU with locked on Cougars. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. All of our shows. It's the Dose Grande Big 12 Squad.